All right, looks like it's about 10 o'clock, so we might as well get started. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, American Standard Circuits and Sunstone Circuits webinar. First one of the 2024 year. Hopefully we will have many more of these to share with you guys as things get going through the year. We hope to have some good information to share and some good interactions. So let's get started. All right. So my name is Matt Stevenson. I'm the Vice President and General Manager here at Sunstone Circuits. I've been in the manufacturing industry for PCBs for over 27 years, most of my career. I've done things from, analytical lab to quality engineering, materials, sales, operations, etc. And now I'm helping run the Oregon facility of our American Standard Circuits conglomeration, if you will. So today we're going to talk a little bit about data packages and how to set yourself up for success while submitting your quotes and orders through either Sunstone or American Standard Circuits. And this type of information will probably help with no matter what manufacturer you use if you choose to use somebody else. Not that I know why you would want to do that. But anyway, so we'll talk a little bit.
Matt, the screen's not sharing.
What's not sharing? It doesn't have the agenda?
No, it doesn't have the presentation.
Shows it on my screen. Try it again. How's that? Any better?
Nope. Are you using the share screen feature?
Yes, sir. It says I'm screen sharing, so.
Yeah, I mean, your screen share just shows Zoom. It shows the website. Doesn't show the PowerPoint.
Stop sharing. Let me try something else. Any better?
No, it didn't. It's the same. Now it is. Yes, perfect.
All right. Technical glitches. Sorry, everyone. Okay, so if everyone can see the agenda, we'll go through some of the PCB data and formats, information on quote success, a little bit on surface finishes, and then we can wrap it up with a question and answer period. All right, so American Standard Circuits has been in business building circuit boards in the U.S. for since 1988. They specialize in all kinds of stuff from high technology digital products, metal back RF products, flex, rigid flex, pretty much you name it. They're getting into the UHDI, ultra high density realm as well, and have been shipping some product on that ultra high density. And they're pretty much poised as the volume manufacturer and more of the high tech work in the PCB industry between Sunstone and ASC. Sunstone, located in Malino, Oregon. We've been building boards since 1973, and our sweet spot is more of the quick turn, short lead time, prototype type orders, FR4 material, shorter lead time, a little lower technology, curve than ASC, but we've pretty much got the entire technology realm covered from short lead time prototypes to volume and high tech between the two facilities. All right, so getting into the reason that we're here today, PCB data. I'll go over a little bit of this. Probably most of you, this will be a review, but just to set the table, there's many types of CAD tools out there that will allow you to to design your circuit board from the schematic all the way to the PCB layout. There's free tools, there's mid-range tools, and then there's the high-end thousands of dollar a year type tools. They generally will give you the ability to communicate your design effectively with your PCB manufacturer through different data formats and different styles of outputs. And they'll also allow you to help create stencils and give data to your assembly partner for for the assembly needs as well. So very powerful tools. And like I said, there's free tools. Some of them are connected to PCB manufacturers, and some of them are open source, and you can export your own Gerbers, etc., and order from whoever your manufacturer of choice is. Some of those data formats that are common out there, there's new ones kind of all the time, but Gerber format has been the tried and true export from CAD tools for a long time, as long as digital designs have occurred. There's three common types of Gerber formats. There's your RS-274D output, your RS-274X, and then there's the Gerber X2 format. Most manufacturers can take some or all of those formats. I think the more recent, the X format is kind of the choice these days. Has the embedded apertures, etc., for most of the drill files and pads, etc. New file choices that are available these days are some more of the intelligent formats, the ODB++, as well as the IPC 2581. Those have a lot of the assembly data kind of embedded into it for pick and place, and makes it easier on the assembly partners for programming their pick and place machines. And it keeps kind of all of that data in one place, the PCB layout, the schematic, as well as the assembly data. And then some manufacturers will actually take native files out of Altium or Cadence or KiCad. Sunstone will take several of those formats. But for the most part, I think most of the time, ODB++ or Gerber formats are going to be your best choice for output for getting good communication with your manufacturing partner. All right, so before we get into kind of some of the things that need to happen on the data format, I wanted to give a little overview of the Sunstone online quote form. It's a dynamic pricing model that will allow you to quote and order directly from Sunstone's websites. Mostly what we're quoting online today is kind of like I mentioned, the prototypes, the FR4 type design boards that have the kind of mid technology range on them. So for those of you that aren't necessarily familiar with the Sunstone online quoting form, I'll go through it pretty quickly. It's fairly comprehensive, but does require that you know your file set a little bit in order to get a good accurate quote for your part. So I'm assuming you can see the Sunstone one quote form being shared with you now. I'm going to go ahead and just go through some of the options here pretty quickly for getting a quote, I'm going to look at a little bit different design, an 093 thick, 10 boards. This design happens to be 6.5 inches by 3.2 inches. And we're going to say that this is an 8-layer design. You can see as I make the selections, the different Sunstone product levels get updated in here. These are typically stacked in order of affordability and value pricing. So as you're closer to the top of this stack here with the green bar, it'll be a lower cost, more affordable, more limitations, and more less scrutiny on the design. But as we get going down the list here, we can see that it'll be more of a NRE type product. So right now, with using the defaults, you can see a couple different lead times, and then all of the lead times that we offer with the different quantities in a matrix here. Everything is clickable. So if you decide you want 2 boards at a 3-day, you can click that box, and that's what you'll see over here in the cart summary section. We have two different products. We have a limited review and a full review NRE. The limited review is more automated, less checks. Things will go through our scripts. It's more based for value rather than for high reliability type things. If you're looking for something that's more high reliability, where we'll actually look at it, we'd want to select the NRE for the engineering level. But we can change copper weights on it. There's good tool tips that will tell you a little bit about each of the selections that you're making and how they're either measured or what we're anticipating you inputting in that field. So I can go through my design, and if I know my information, I can update solder mask sides, etc. Yes, I want 2 solder mask sides. I want a different color solder mask. I do have nomenclature on both sides. We'll talk more about surface finishes in a little while, but you can select different surface finishes from here. We want to look for your minimum drill via size. Do you want them individually routed, or do you want some kind of panelization with it? We'll leave it as individual for now. Plated slots, plated cutouts, these all impact the cost and whatnot. And you can see every time I make a selection, it updates the price real time. If I want a first article inspection report to come with my order, if I want some kind of control impedance, I can add that to the list. And then anytime I go to something that's a custom quote, it'll tell me a reason why I did it. So I can make changes to keep it as an online quoted price. Down at the bottom, there's different things that you can add to it: electrical test, UL lot date codes, cage codes, Sunstone logos, etc., castellated holes, blind buried vias. And then we also have the option for doing some quick turn assembly with our partner Screaming Circuits, adding a labor only and kitting parts and shipping it directly to them. Turnkey assembly, which would bring it again to a custom quote where we would need to interact with Screaming Circuits to get you that quote on your BOM. So lots of different options here for things. If you want to purchase a stencil, whether it be a framed stencil, a prototype hand stencil, etc., we have those options as well through our quote form. Once I have my board configured, it's really easy. Then I can just upload my files if I want to, add this to my cart, add the files if I want to, but basically continue through the checkout process and get that part ordered right away. So start in manufacturing basically as soon as possible. So that's a little bit of an overview of our online quote form. So if there's any questions on that, I'd be happy to answer those towards the end of the session. But I'll go back to the presentation now. Hopefully that switched over
Yep.
as we hoped. So all right. So moving on to actual information. So, as designers, getting an accurate quote from your PCB manufacturer, I think, is something that everybody's very interested in. There's nothing like getting a quote and then realizing that it's not exactly what you intended for whatever reason. So the data file that comes with your quote package is that vehicle really that talks to the manufacturer about what your design looks like, where the manufacturing pitfalls could be, and how we're going to be able to panelize and price that order the best possible for what your needs are. Sometimes speed is more important than cost, and sometimes cost is more important than speed. So anytime you can kind of communicate what your needs are, what your expectations are, the more accurate and better we'll be able to quote those for you. So in your quote package, including all of the circuitry layers, your solder mask layers, your soap screen layers, outlines, mechanical features, slots, everything contained in those data files, the better, the more accurate we'll be able to identify your design, the more quickly we can create a quote for you, and the more accurately, and so there won't be any surprises later in the process. We'd like to see fab drawings with all of the information kind of laid out, what the stack up looks like if you have preferences on the stack up, drill table, surface finish, plating requirements, any standards that it needs to be built to. If you have a specific array drawing, we'd like to see that as well. README files with any special instructions that you may have that are outside of what's contained in your electronic data, or the quote form if you were using the Sunstone online quote form. And then, especially when you're placing the order, we really recommend that you just send the most recent set of files in one folder. We tend to get a lot of designs where the entire archive of that part revision, and there could be 6 different sets of data embedded in that one zip file. And the most recent one with the date stamp may not be complete. So we sometimes have to go through all 6 sets of data to make sure that we have everything that we need. So being able to have that all in one place definitely speeds up the response time and increases the accuracy of the manufactured boards. Some of the fab notes, kind of being a little more general in general, helps to the manufacturer be able to support your needs. So laminate types is one specific. I know a lot of people they'll call out a specific material type. And sometimes the lead time or the availability on that material for a given manufacturer may be longer and delayed, where if you're able to use the IPC slash sheets and have like equivalent materials available, a lot of times the manufacturer has access to one or more of those other materials in a lot shorter order of business, and you can actually get the order to start sooner. Sometimes you have to have a specific material, but the more often you can be a little more general and call out a slash sheet requirement rather than a specific material, the better. Here's an example of some of the 4101 slash sheets and kind of the general characteristics of those materials. It gives some of the DK values. TGs, and then the type of resin system, et cetera, that it is in glass. So um, there's a lot of data in that slash sheet, that 4101 spec, and there should be something in there that fits your needs for sure. Let's see, specifications and certifications that you call out in your data package. Anything that you are required to have from your design standpoint, calling it out specifically on the print or in your README definitely helps a lot of things. So if you need, different IPC class specifications, class 3, class, military, 55 110, for example. If you need, electrical test certs, if you need a certificate of conformance, HIPOT testing results, cross-section reports, if you need a RoHS report, calling out all those things in your print notes and your READMEs will help us to be able to provide you with exactly what you need for it to go through your incoming inspections, et cetera. There's lots of different things that people have asked for. CPK reports, excuse me, first article reports. Every design, every company's got different requirements. So calling out exactly what you need on your print definitely helps with the quoting part of it, as well as the order as it goes through the shop. Calling out drill sizes and tolerances in one drill table is very helpful. Definitely gives the CAM tooling people the ability to make the proper adjustments to add for plate allowance, depending on what surface finishes that you chose, etc. But having everything clearly marked out, symboled, tolerance definitely helps everything make sure that you're going to get what you had anticipated. So just being clear in the data package definitely helps everybody involved. If you've got back drill requirements, really spelling those out, and showing where the tolerances might end up and what layers that we're drilling through, definitely help communicate the expectations from from all sides. Every structure that you have that may have a different landing point, different starting point, calling those out and making it really clear, like this drawing, very important. Having a diagram of your different via structures as well. If you've got different types of via structures in your design, buried vias, what layers do they encompass? Blind vias, again, what layers are we looking for? Having the drill files labeled as such that they're clear. This is the blind via drill from layers 1 to 2, something along those lines. So it's really clear which are the ones that you're intending during the process. So really just adding that extra layer of communication and traceability to your design so that there's no questions later. When you call out like via plugging, there's very different types of via plugging, and there's different costs associated with each. So making sure that you kind of call out exactly what you need for that design, whether it be a prototype or a high reliability production order, calling out whether it's mask tenting or solder mask plugged vias, non-epoxy filled vias, sorry, or whether you need really the via and pad plated over treatment to it. Really identifying which vias are required and what type during the in the print will help the overall communication process. So there's many different surface finishes available. Really, a lot of it depends on what the needs are from your standpoint. I mean, surface finishes in general, they protect the design from oxidation and really ensure solderability to it. But different considerations on pitch, on what you need for component planarity, shelf life, assembly cycles, cost targets, different applications. Each different surface finish can have different pluses or minuses for your needs. Obviously, Hassel is a tried and true, solders very well surface finish, but may not be the best for fine pitch. It's definitely not a very planar surface finish. So it may have limited use in your designs these days. But Enid, probably one of the most popular surface finishes today. It's pretty flat. It's got a good bond that's created between the nickel and the solder. When you go to solder, it's RoHS compliant. It is a little more expensive due to the nature of the process, but has really taken over as one of the main surface finishes out there. Immersion silver, immersion tin, different types of tin lead reflow, lead free, hard gold, soft gold, whether you're wire bonding with gold wires or aluminum wires, there's different surface finishes that may meet your need and your cost requirements. So lots of different choices, but again, calling out what exactly you need in your prints. If you use the Sunstone order form, if you're able to select the surface finish that matches your needs, all the better. So the one piece of advice at the end of the day that we have that is, I think, more paramount than any of the other specifics that we talked about, really, for getting an accurate quote, getting an accurate build, is really talking to your PCB design manufacturer during the design phase, especially if you're on the edges of technology. If you're trying something new, if you're using embedded passive materials, if you have rigid flex designs that are, a little new to you, getting up front with that PCB manufacturer ahead of time and answering those questions and being able to, kind of head those problems off before they get to manufacturing and your design's committed will only improve your overall design turn times, as well as the reliability and the expectations that you're going to get from your design. So that one piece of advice, I think, is to me the most important thing that you can do is contacting and talking up front with the manufacturers. All right, I think that is everything that we have on the agenda for today. So with that, I'll open it up to any additional questions in the chat function.
So there's a couple of things that came up that I just want to point out. So one of them was, there was a question that came up on getting an example of great fab notes on a complicated PCB. So we can certainly send you guys that. If you send an email to sales@asc-i.com, we can get you copies of a fab note example for a complicated circuit board. We also have one that's in our Rigid Flex book, if you've ever had the opportunity to see that. So there's, in the appendix, there's a set of notes, but we can get you a set of notes regardless. And then if anybody wants a copy of the slide deck, also send an email to us and we can certainly send you a copy of the slide deck.
Perfect.
There is a couple other questions. One is, so Brian asked, do you have lead-free hassle? I thought you didn't.
So Sunstone doesn't have lead-free hassle in-house. We have a couple outside manufacturers that can help us provide that surface finish if that's what you need. And I believe it's a similar situation on the ASC side.
And ASC has it in-house.
In-house, okay.
Yeah. And then can board layer stackups be included in the ODB++ files? I think the answer to that is yes. Is that correct, Matt?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, I think that's one of the exports that you can have out of your ODB+ files is the layer stackups.
Yeah. So then there was a question on, can vias be filled with FR4 170 TG epoxy? So typically, if you have a buried via or a blind via, you may be able to fill it with the epoxy given the pre-preg styles that are used, the amount of holes you have. So if there's enough free resin, the free resin will flow through the via hole. So that is definitely an option. I mean, sometimes you could end up with a reliability issue if you're on the edge, but I mean, that is certainly an option to be able to fill it with FR4 170 TG epoxy. We do that in many of the examples, especially with some buried vias. Do you accept IPC 2581? We do at ASC, at least we do accept 2581 as a supported format. I'm not sure if we do on the Sunstone side, but either way, we can take it and process your boards either at Sunstone or ASC.
Yeah, Sunstone doesn't take them directly, but like Ane mentioned, we can get them converted one way or another and get them built.
Okay, so that. A lot of customers don't know what costs more. What's the smallest drill size before price starts to go up? What's the smallest tray space before the price starts to go up? I would say from my perspective, once you get below 4 mil lines, 4 mil spaces, your price is definitely going to go up. And I think in terms of drill bits, once you're below likely a 9.8 drill bit, your prices are going to go up. And again, it also depends on aspect ratio. So it's not just drill size in and of itself, but it's also what the aspect ratio associated with the board is. So in some cases, the 9.8 could go up also. So there's an interesting question. Tell us about each company, and we use ASC here. So Matt, you want to talk about kind of what's the focus of Sunstone, and then I can cover ASC?
Yep. Okay. So Sunstone, we primarily work in the FR4 realm. We can do in-house with FR4 2 to about 20 layers of designs. We have a limitation of about 125 thousandths thick. So that kind of the 20 layers kind of caps there. Theoretically, we could do above 20 layers, but the thickness requirement is kind of our ceiling there. Typically, we do about 10-to-1 aspect ratio from a drilled hole standpoint. So, you know, a 12.5 mil drill on a 125 thick, or, you know, 10 mil drill on 100 thick or less. We have, you know, surface finish options in-house. We have Enig, we have silver, we have leaded hassle. We can do a immersion tin as well. different solder mask colors. 8 mil mechanical drill is our current limitation today on most FR4 products. One lamination cycle, and currently today we're working on some processes for some blind and buried vias, but today we're not quoting those online. We will do some Rogers and Taconic material, some double-sided, single-sided boards with Rogers and Taconic materials. But at this point, no multi-layers. We'll do some hybrid stack-ups with FR4 and some of the like Rogers 4000 series or 4350 materials. But that's pretty much what we do in terms of capabilities. Our lead times on those are anywhere from 24 hours to 3 weeks. You can quote and order online a 14-layer board that we can turn in a 1-day turn if it's ordered before noon Pacific time. It'll have some of the limitations that I talked about with the quote form. We're not going to analyze the design and make sure that your print notes are done, but we can manufacture something if the design's pretty well straight, or you just have a need for a prototype for mechanical fit, etc. In a 24-hour turn. So those are kind of the highlights of our overall capabilities.
What were you saying, Matt?
I was gonna say, do you want to go over the ASC capability?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, from an ASC standpoint of view, we've got a very broad product offering. So we go from double-sided all the way up to 34 layers on FR4. We can do HDI via structures. We can do ultra HDI. So that's, I would say, less than 3 mil line, 3 mil space. We can do flex, we can do rigid flex, we can do hybrid RF multi-layer boards with cavities. We can do metal back boards, both in terms of carriers and metal core boards. And then we're also able to do insulated metal circuit boards. So I think from an ASC standpoint of view, we cover a very broad product mix, and whatever Sunstone is not able to do, we can usually fill in the gaps there. In terms of there were a few questions on QML and MIL standards. So ASC is actually MIL PRF 31032, and it is on the QML. We're on the QML for FR4, polyimide, and hydrocarbons, and flex, rigid flex today. So we have a pretty good portfolio of MIL PRF 31032 stuff. There are definitely some differences in terms of what you get with IPC versus what you get in with the MIL coupons and the MIL certification. So there are definitely certain differences there. In terms of the MIL standard, we also are obligated to send the most difficult part we have built every month to the QML labs to make sure that they do an outside analysis is done once a month on every technology type that we have built. So that's kind of the additional protection you get. And then if there are failures, we need to kind of walk through with the customer what the failures were, if there were any, and whether there would be any implications or not. So typically the cost differences, I mean, usually, you could assume that there's at least a 10 to 15% markup on a board that's certified to MIL standards versus one that's certified to IPC. The only other thing that you would have to worry about is you could see an additional price increase if for some reason the mill coupons end up occupying more space than the IPC coupons do, and we end up losing panel utilization. So that could be the other issue, because again, you need some bigger borders in order to get the mill coupons done versus the standard borders. In terms, I mean, there was a question here on cost drivers, and essentially I do have a presentation on cost drivers, which I would be happy to send out. So if, and the cost drivers are basically the same for both companies. I mean, at the end of the day, the cost drivers are, you know, pretty much similar for most PCB fabricators. I mean, the only time there's a big difference in cost drivers could be if somebody is doing something out of house or they have to outsource something and then they end up paying more for that particular feature. But essentially, you know, it's the material type, it's the layer count, it's the drill sizes, the number of drill holes, and also kind of the via structure, whether you have via fill or not involved. So those are some of the basic cost drivers that I would say if we were to summarize it in, you know, in 10 seconds. In terms of recordings being sent, yes, we will send a link to a recording that you will be able to, you will get the link tomorrow. Okay, let me try to clear out some of these questions. Is PDF style documentation still useful when you can just send an ODB++ file? What do you think, Matt?
I think the more that you can send, the better. In general, PDFs are easily consumed and easily read by most people on the floor, etc. ODB++ may not be as easy to consume. So I think having that supporting information is helpful from our standpoint.
So what is the maximum panel size? Okay, so you're answering that question, Matt.
Yeah.
So there's a question here. Does it matter where you submit a quote, either through Sunstone or ASC? Will it go to the most appropriate company, or is it better to send more complicated boards to ASC and simpler boards to Sunstone?
And really, it depends on you as a customer. What makes more sense? Sunstone and ASC have a really good back and forth relationship. If you have an existing relationship at either ASC or Sunstone and like the support that you've been given, continue to do it that way, and we will, you know, communicate back and forth with the other shop that may be more appropriate for building that design. And you know, that way if you have terms set up at Sunstone maybe and not at ASC, you know, those type of things, you know, if one's on the approved vendor list at this point and the other isn't, from an expediency standpoint, you know, do whatever's best for you, and behind the scenes we'll make it work the best possible way.
So Brian has panelization. Suppose a customer asks for an odd number of PCBs, like 17, it's going to be panelized. Is it cheaper or better to ask for a panel of 18 or a panel of 20 with 3X outs allowed?
Depends on the board size, the array size. Obviously, the more X outs you allow, the probably the lower the cost will be to you down the road. Um, but really whatever you need.
There is a question on, can you recommend a source of explanation of each of the manufacturing specs required? So we have published a book which is available online. It's called The Fundamentals of PCB Fabrication. That book has many of the specs that you may want to use and a brief explanation of what's going on with that spec. However, if you have additional questions or want more information, I mean, please send us an email, and we will be happy to get you more information if that's not enough, or or you need something else. So we will be happy to get you that. Do you have a listing of PWB fab notes that are preferred notes? Yes, we do. So again, if you send us an email, we can get you a list of preferred fab notes. What are the size limitations for FR Floor and Flex PC? So today, the maximum size that American Standard Circuits is running for FR4 is a panel size of 21 by 24. Having said that, we do have ways that we can work with other companies to get you larger panel sizes than that, depending on the layer count, the via structure, etc. And then in terms of flex PCBs, I mean, we can do the same 18 by 24, but I mean, we are building flex circuits right now as long as 28 or 30 inches. So we do have that ability also. Okay, you're answering the max quantity per lot charge?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, American Standard Circuits does offer heavy copper. So far, we're limited at 6 ounces at this moment, just from a availability of foils perspective. I mean, if you need something more than 6 ounces on your board, my suggestion would be to get us the data package and we can take a look at it and see whether, plating some additional copper on is a option. In terms of the link for the ebooks, if you go to the ASC website, which would be asc-i.com, and look under the free resource section, there's a section on ebooks, and all the 6 ebooks are in there. I can paste the link to in a second here. Or not. I'm not going to be able to get the link right this second, but that's the way to get to it.
All right. Looks like there's a question on a specific board dimension and layer count for ASC&A, 21.7 by 2905 on a 30 plus layer board.
No, we do not have that ability today. I wish we did, but we don't. A PCB microvia is available. Yes, they are available. So we have a in-house laser. We're able to do multi-stacks of microvias.
Any other questions? All right. You're very welcome, Dave. All right, everybody. I think if there's no more questions, I think that's it. Have a great day. And like Anae mentioned, you should be getting a link to the recording of this in the next 24 hours or so. So have a great day and keep an eye open. We'll have more webinars coming your way.
Thank you.
Today and a prosperous 2024, everyone.